So we'll be talking about video game music, about how important they are. This is what are the differences between video game world and indie music, alternative music industry, let's say. But first of all, I would like my guests to introduce themselves, to tell a few words about what they exactly do in video game domain, and what is their favorite game.
Okay, so I guess I'm the designated speaker here. My name is Marcin Sonnenberg. I come from more of an electronic club music background, but with a game called Leśniewski, which is funny indie game, I guess. I started also composing music for games, which is up till now a very entertaining adventure. As for my favorite game, I guess that would be Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Not my favorite soundtrack though, although the soundtrack is pretty great there. I think my favorite game soundtrack is from Sonic 3 and Knuckles from '95, Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, which there were rumors that Michael Jackson was involved in the production of that, which rather is a hoax, but it's still a like banging, funky FM Yamaha soundtrack. So yeah, I guess that's enough.
Hi there. My name is Mariusz Leśniewski, and I'm a bit of musician, a bit of game designer, and I started my adventure with music by playing in a band. And there was a lot of bands actually, but the one that you may know of heard of is Hatifnats. And then I just decided to make games. I always wanted to make games, not only music for the games, but also like a game design. So what I'm doing now in Cherrypick games is I make a game design. I also make a sound and music design. I also compose some music for my first game, like indie game, Imps in Tokyo. So yeah, that's a bit of my background. And as concerns my favorite game, well, that's really hard question. It's the same like my favorite music or my favorite album. It's like a really complex question, but I can say my favorite game soundtrack is a soundtrack from Hotline Miami game, and I think that this soundtrack really defines this game. And without this soundtrack, this game would be completely different game. So that's my favorite music soundtrack from the game, which is like really crazy. Psychotrance Miami house soundtrack, and it fits so well to the game that it just makes completely whole new experience. So yeah, that's a few words about me. Mariusz, you.
Hello, I'm Mariusz Szypura. I'm from Telehorse now. I started as a indie rock musician or something like that, playing a Happy Pills band from Poznań, from here. And then I start some indie pop project called Silver Racket. Maybe you know it or not, but not important at this moment. But I was graphic designer too, so I merged my skills together and started making games. It was about 5 years ago. And now the company was developing. Now we are a public company on the stock exchange market. So okay, that's... I started as a one-man army. Now there is a company, but of course there was more fun where I was making game by myself than in such a big company. Okay, that's my favorite game. It depends. Are we talking about music or about game? But I think there's a Machinarium and the soundtrack by Dvorak. It was really, really cool. But I like too another game that's Neverhood. There was a, I think, most significant soundtrack because it was fitting to the game absolutely. But the game was a flop, so it was in 1996. 1996, it was released by Microsoft Eidos, but I like this game, so never mind. Okay.
So most of you, or even all of you, I don't know if I can count Marcin, who's in both fields, escaped indie music to make games. Why did you choose at a certain moment making games over
I
making
think
music?
we didn't escape. We just expand from indie bands and indie rock music. For me, for example, there is the same feeling that I had in 90s when the indie when I started indie band, and it was the same feeling like I started making games because it was something like, okay, there's something like punk rock, I don't know, maybe not no future, but do it yourself, more like the American 80s stuff with the hardcore bands and network and everything. It was for me the same when I started making games. It was the same feeling. Okay, we are making something new, something which is some kind of art or some the expression of ourselves.
Yeah. It was exactly the same with me, and it's actually quite funny because we are both Mariusz. Yeah, our name is both Mariusz, and we decided to do the same thing in the same exact moment. I guess it was like 5 years ago. We used to, or we still play in a band, but that was our main domain. Yeah, playing in a band. I mean, artistic wise, and then we just decided to just make games. Yeah, it was the same decision in the same time, and the same reasons for me as well. Like do it yourself and explore new artistic grounds. Because for me and for you, I guess, games are art as well, and not only with the music layer, but also with art layer, animation, and general. Feeling and expression and what games say. I mean, because mostly people connect games with crazy FPS shooters and shooting to Nazis and stuff like this. But games are really, really deep. Can be really, really deep and deep form of art. So I guess that was for us something that was attractive and yeah, we just decided to jump in. Yeah, you want to say something?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name's not Mariusz, so my story is a bit different. But I think it was. Of course, I'm new to the field, but it always seemed kind of a natural choice when I was approached by the Leśniewski, the game studio that I'm working with, to agree and to say yes, because I was raised on video game music. I'm not much of a video game player right now, but all of my childhood and teenage years, it was like just playing PlayStation, GameCube, and many more. And I guess from talking to other electronic producers, I gathered that it is very common, and the influence that video game music had on many producers, like I know Fatima Al Qadiri or Rusty or other kind of underground, or maybe not so underground, but electronic club music producers is massive, and the aesthetics of the soundtracks of the now early games is something that influenced a whole generation.
one more word, because it was connected with the, in my case, was connected too with the disappointment of the music scene too, because you know the Spotify changed everything, and Napster and you know MP3, but it was something like you know you are playing music and you don't have an audience to play the music. No one knows about your band and stuff like that. So I thought that with the games will be different case, because you know they are selling games and stuff. That's okay, but as I said before, that was exactly the same. So,
Okay, you told Mariusz that it's more or less the same. It was the more or less the same energy in the indie game movement. There were some traits of DIY attitude in it. What are the main similarities and differences between these two worlds? I mean, the world of indie music or music in general, stage music, and doing it and working in the game area.
I think it starts with the you know the similarities with the, for example, in the indie games movement, of course, because it's not, we are not making AAA games. It was the same because it was, you know, some banduaries, some low budget stuff. You're trying do as much as you can with the low resources, and of course, there you are trying to get to the people, go to the people with this your idea, and make some network and social community around your games. It was exactly the same like in '90s. Now, of course, when everything changed, when the majors were more important in Poland in the end of '90s or beginning of the next millennium, that was, you know, that's everything changed, because you know that the indie market was smaller and smaller. But in games, I think the indie market is still growing. So that's the difference.
There are a lot of things that are the same or quite similar, but I think that in case of indie games, there is also a huge community of gamers and players in the world, and there are many sites and forums like Reddit, subreddits that really support and look for new, fresh ideas and games. Also, like special dedicated programs on a Steam platform, Greenlight, and or Good Old Games by CD Projekt. It's not. I'm not saying it's easy to release your game and be popular and achieve something. Or I mean, it may not be your goal to achieve something, but comparing to the indie music, yeah, it's always about, you know, being indie, but also being somebody and play gigs and you know, get with your music to people. I mean, in case of games, there are many ways to achieve that as well, but it doesn't mean it's easy. It's also really hard because there are really many games being released as we speak, and it's also, I mean, similar with the music. Yeah, everybody can be a musician now, and it's the same with games actually, because you can be a musician with you know, just playing a guitar and mastering just basics of digital audio workstation, you know, workflow. You can really do it now. You can just you know, record some simple beat and rap or sing or whatever, and just put it on a YouTube. And it doesn't make you famous, but it gives you some possibility to reach to people. So it's the same with games now. It was much harder, like in the 90s or 80s. Wow, that was really crazy hard to make a game, because you had to be a programmer. You had to really know what you're doing. And now, like, you don't have to actually. You have tools, external tools. You can make your own game with like minimum knowledge of coding, and you can just release it. Yeah, the same as with music. But what happens next? It's just, you know, a huge fucking mystery. You know, whether somebody will discover you or not. That's a completely different story. But you can do it. Yeah. You want to say add something?
No.
Okay, so isn't it that the indie game market is more globalized? I mean, of course, there are some similarities, but we are discussing the subject in English. It's a normal way when you are gathering in the video game field, because you are addressing everything to the global public. You are making games to people, not mentioning if there are people here in the country or abroad. Language is not a matter of discussion.
Yeah, there are no barriers whatsoever, actually. And look at this way. Mostly what people think about releasing first game is like, let's release a mobile game, because it seems easy. And relatively it is easy to release a mobile game. You just download Unity software and you make your game with some plugins and you release it. And look at this. I mean, you have like billions of people with smartphones in their pockets, like every day. Yeah, and you have App Store and you have Google Play stores where you can release games like basically for free and just reach to those people. But the competition is so big, so huge, that you have a platform, you can reach to the people, but you are just somewhere lost in a maze of thousands of games that are being released. So on the one hand, you are releasing globally to the global audience. There are no boundaries, like language boundaries or marketing. Marketing is an issue because you don't have the money when you're indie. But there are no boundaries, like you don't have a distribution or publisher. You can release it just like that, really easy. But you really need a marketing support to get your audience, yeah. And that's the same with music and games, I guess.
It's a funny story because, as I said, I was a musician for more than 20 years, and we were with Happy Pills. We were always singing in English. That's not so obvious in Poland. So we always try to go with our music abroad, because we were listening to bands that are, the global bands, for example, or our idols was not the local bands, but for example, Pixies or Scenic Youth. We are trying to make stuff like them, but our way. But it was really, really hard to go to for example, to the States. We got some episode when we were almost touring in States, but it was, the 9. That's maybe not so funny story, but but it was very significant for our lives. Okay, we tried for 20 years go abroad, but when I started making games, it was that that was in the period of time of 1 year when I, for example, won some awards, or my games were recognized in the abroad. Yeah, that was so cool and was so different than in music, that you are trying for 20 years and now, okay, I just download the software, start learning programming, and 1 year later, okay, I got some awards, people know me, and then everything is okay. That's absolutely doesn't mean that I earn a lot of money on this. That was the difference, because when you are touring, you are getting money, but when you are raising games, you are just investing.
Yeah, so basically in games, or especially in game music, nobody knows that you have like silly Slavic accent. Yeah. Yeah, you just make your game, and it's international by definition. Yeah, it's a game. You follow certain rules. You make a good game, which is fun to play. That's the basic rule of the game. And you make cool music, which completes the piece, and then or even make it even better, like in Hotline Miami. And nobody really cares about your accent or where you're from, or things like that. So that's really cool.
I was actually amazed to hear a couple of days ago when I was talking to one of the developers of Leśniewski that there are quite a few copies being played in China, and most of them are probably pirate copies, actually. But it was a crazy thought that I don't know how many, but like 1,000, maybe more people in China are playing this game and hearing my music, and it wouldn't be so easy or even probably possible with the music I'm making like on a daily basis traditionally to do that. And it was really an amazing thought to have.
Okay, so let's use this example and change the perspective a little bit. Let's move to the AAA games field with Slavic accents. So you may now imagine what we'll be talking about. Who of you played The Witcher? Some of you. Who of you heard the music by Marcin Przybyłowicz and Percival Schattenbach? By mistake even, yeah? Not playing the game. So this is the special case I like to focus for the while, because the success of Marcin Przybyłowicz music and Percival Schattenbach music, and even music played by Bydgoszcz Academy of Music Choir, because they were involved in this particular game. This was the most popular Polish artists in 2016, based on the statistics of Spotify. What this particular example tells about the possibilities of games? Is it an aberration, or is it really showing some possibilities to market the game music in streaming too? What do you think? Marcin?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think we all have to thank Marcin Przybyłowicz and CD Projekt Red because from what I read, the video game industry is now responsible for like 0.1% of Polish GDP. So that's a lot of money, and I guess we owe it in a significant part to Wiedźmin. So the creation of the market and the fact that I guess there is a lot of money right now for video games in Poland. That's something we kind of owe to them.
Yeah. As Marcin said, it's like they made a tremendous work. I mean, CD Projekt Red. They speaking about music from Witcher. We have to speak about The Witcher itself as well, because this game is huge. This game is so universally acclaimed that it's like top 3 or 5 games of all times, based on Metascore on Metacritic.com. It means that this game is one of the best games ever made. In my opinion, it is really that good. And in the opinion of a lot of people all around the world, it's like, top 3. So this obviously contributes to the success of the soundtrack as well. Because of so many people played this game, they had a chance to reach, and hear the music, which is great, obviously, which is really outstanding. And then you just, pass this message to their friends and share it with the others, and it's like, a snowball effect. But yeah, first of all, The Witcher has like a huge audience, and then The Witcher music has a huge audience, and it gives you a clue what can be done with AAA games. But yeah, this is one of the best games ever. It's not just regular game. Yeah,
we can see it from 2 perspectives, because one perspective is Witcher impact on music industry, and second is Witcher impact on gaming industry. And for example, in gaming industry now, as far as I'm concerned, there is about 400 indie studios in Poland. There's huge amount of indie studios making games. That, of course, there's I don't count some some solo developers. And when I was, for example, trying to hire some developers or programmers, everyone got in their resume Witcher. Everyone was working on Witcher 1, 2, 3, or sometimes was almost working on Witcher, but everyone got the Witcher in their resume. But impact was very, very significant because that pushed our gaming industry forward. For example, when I talk with the people from Ukraine or other countries, they got the very good developers. They got the developers, got the programmers, everything, but they don't got such a big success like this War of Mine or The Witcher or something like that pushed forward industry. But from we're talking about Przybyłowicz, that was really cool that he was recognized as a Polish musician that made something big. But I think it was no impact for music industry because that separately that wasn't a normal artist. That was a guy who made the music for a game. That's the problem. That music for a game is recognized as something less worthy than, for example, releasing the solo album, which is treated as a more artistic or something like that. I think that's the question.
So it tells us something, of course, about streaming. This case that the AAA's titles can be streamed everywhere and can gather money from streaming. I think I don't know if the Witcher soundtrack was even released on CD. It was, but it was a kind of special edition and didn't sell this well. So, but I would like to ask you about the other way of distributing video game music, which is which are the sales through to Steam or other gaming platforms. I don't know the statistics of this. Many people buy video game music as an add-on to the game itself. Do you know if it's a future, if it is a perspective for music artists to earn some money this way?
Well, I think it is a perspective for an artist, but it really depends on the music and the game, because it's I guess it's uncommon for the artist, like musician, to produce really nice music, which is then combined with crappy game, and the music itself stands out, and he starts or she starts to earn money or be recognized by the music. That's quite uncommon. So it always, well, maybe not always, but usually it has to go hand in hand, like game and music. Yeah. When a game is good and people like it, then it becomes massive, it becomes popular, and then when the music is good, yeah, then there's a chance to earn some money or just get some credit for it. But it should go hand in hand, I guess, music and the game. And obviously there are like albums sold separately on a Steam or Bandcamp or other platforms. They usually cost like $2 or something. That's the price tag the average player, because mostly players buy this music, is able to pay for an album. So comparing to like standalone, like regular album, it's not a lot. It's not much, but it's still something. Yeah. So yeah, it is some chance.
It's hard to talking about sales of music from video games separately, because that no one is buying even digital albums, so everyone is streaming it.
Yeah,
so,
actually, Apple just shut down the iTunes store.
Yeah, iTunes store. So there's only Apple Music. So no, that's
so streaming.
We can buy music. We can just rent it. that's maybe fun, but I think from my side, my point of view as a listener, that was, you know, the Spotify was something really, really great because I could at last, you know, listen to all the music I like. But from, you know, the musician point of view, that was, you know, devastating, absolutely. So now the problem is, I think that that no one if you are making music for a game, you can, you know, it's hard to earn money on this when you are, you know, selling albums. You can earn money making some composition and talking with the developer and make some contract with the developer. But from game developer side, I know that is true that the, you know, the on the pipeline of budget or something like that, there is always, you know, the making games, animation, graphic design, and far there is, you know, some budget for maybe music or okay, sound effects. Yeah. Yeah, so that's really need to change mind to that's why the musician need to connect with the game developers, and both sides should know that it's very important that the music is a integral part of a game.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I guess the most important part in actually earning the money here is the proper contract with the developer, which, you know, safeguards you. But from what I gathered, the releasing like a solo album on Steam wasn't that big of a deal, but actually the bundle, the game together with the soundtrack, it sold nicely, and I guess in terms of releasing just the music, the numbers were better on a Bandcamp, sites like Bandcamp, so which is more like a community concentrated on music, right? So
that's exactly what I was going to ask you about this, because you are, as an author of Lichtper's soundtrack, you are independent artist now, selling your music in two separate ways, and so Bandcamp is still more interesting for selling music as
I guess so. I mean, I'm not selling it totally independently on Bandcamp, because that's, you know, I wanted it to be also handled by the developer, so I get it off my mind. But I think Bandcamp is quite promising in terms of that.
Let's focus on the musician's perspective for some minutes. Maybe we have musicians among us in the public, and many of them certainly thought about doing something for the game industry, let's say, once again. So what are the first steps for them? Who to choose, whom to contact, to write to, where to go, to just make a connection with this video game world?
Well, I'm seeing quite a lot of just work offers online, but if you are a musician and you just want to, you know, try it, I guess the indie game market is a really good place to start, because, you know, it's well, the AAA kind of games are this. I think it's a whole another world, and it's big budget affairs with, you know, orchestras and so on. But the indie game scene also makes money and generates, you know, revenue, but you have a lot of artistic freedom, a lot of ideas you can try out. I think the music also quite often plays a more important role in those indie titles. So yeah, I guess start there.
Yeah, I guess it's a good piece of advice. Like, look for indie game scene. It's really creative and open-minded uh, group of people who look for, also creative people. So you can just, do whatever you like, and there are a lot of crazy ideas you can explore. So it's a really good place in the scene. Just look for a web, look for Reddit, look for like a gaming portals and stuff. They always look for some talented musicians to help with the project. Or you can also do it on your own. If you are really into games, you can try to make your own game, and it's really accessible now. And you can make your own music. There are really few examples of games made by one man and with the music composed with one man that are successful, and it's also really good way to start. It also requires more time from you, so it depends whether you focus only on music or you want to explore gaming as it is more deeply.
If I start now as a musician trying to make a music for the games, as I said, there is a 400 indie game developer studios. You can find them on, I don't know, maybe on Indie Foundation Polska, Indie Games Foundation Polska website or something. You can just, just check it, and there is all the studios in Poland which are indie or not only indie. And of course, it's good way to talk with them is to have the portfolio or some music you made before. That helps, and that's obvious, yeah. But from other side, there's always the way to, just like me, to make a game by yourself, to release your music, make a place for your own music. That was one of the reasons that I made game. Yeah.
So that was a placeholder for your music, yeah.
So now we start composing video game music. It's gonna be quite different from the music for the movie, most probably. Tell me what are the main differences? It's longer. The soundtrack for the video game, is it longer? Is it supposed to be done in a special way? How is it different from any other kind of illustrative music?
I'm not sure about guys. I guess you have your own ways. I'll just say about my way of producing music for a game. So what I found different is that it's also an illustration, as you said. It's like it's a background, but it's not only a background like in a movie. The game medium is very specific because it interacts with player. So making music, it's more complex in a way that you have to. First thing ever is that you should play games. Yeah, if you want to make music for games, you should play games and understand games, how they work, and what is the game feedback, and what is that sometimes you pay more attention to some things. Maybe it's a sound, maybe it's animation, maybe it's both, maybe it's it's like really complex interactive medium. So making music for the game is tons of fun, but it's also thinking not only about the background, about what the game is about, but also how player can interact with the game and what should happen then with the music, or what kind of feedback game should give by, I don't know, releasing a one-shot sound or something. So it's more of a, building a world of music within a game, which is interactive, and it's a hell of fun. So yeah, you should do it if you want.
It's a totally different for me than making music, because when you are making album or concept album or something like that you have the idea of album and there is only music on this album. of course, there is some voices, vocalists, okay, but there is still music. But when you are making music for example, movie, I was making music for 2 movies, and it was a totally different way, because one was that I saw the picture and just made the background music for this. That was the picture inspiring you to making music. But the other way, I was making music before the movie was released. It was only on the screenplay. I made the music, and then they made a movie that was. I wasn't happy with that, but that's what the 2 different ways. But in games, there is a third side, because there is some sound effects, and sometimes it's really hard to fit to the flow of the game. It depends on what happened on the screen. Sometimes there is interactive. You need to remember that everything can change. But implementing some sound effects inside the music, that is very important. For example, there is a game like Rayman Legends. When you are playing, sometimes it's absolutely synchronized when you are jumping, and all the accents are in the right places. I don't know how they made it, to be honest, but it's absolutely the great example of how the music is connected with the gameplay. It's totally. I think it's harder than making just just releasing an album. But of course, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess I had no chance to really explore that in the Leśniewski game, because it's like arcade mechanics. So it just could be loops. But the loops itself, the repetition is also something that is quite different from the music for the movies, right? So it is also kind of non-linearity in a way, because the loops plays for as long as you play the one stage, the given stage, right? I think the process is totally different. It has to serve as an illustration, but from the production standpoint, you have to factor the such things as that the sound effects can happen in any given time, and they can't interfere with the things that are happening in the music. Also, even though the Leśniewski was like a super easy game from that perspective, that just the moment when you are crossing, for example, to other stage in the game, you have to think about the transitions to happen in the right moment. You have to work with the developers to actually code it, to make it happen in a way that will be musical and will not be like a complete train wreck. And of course, in more complicated games in that respect, it's quite amazing that you have some musical stamps, musical tracks, which can, I don't know, maybe randomly or maybe not randomly, start or end in relation to the things that are happening on the screen. So I think it's completely other experience than to scoring.
It's a kind of an open form. You are working with some models for modules for music,
sure.
And the coder is responsible for making it happen. I mean, for some making making the changements in music are happening at a certain moment.
Yes. No, and the challenge is to have that under control and to know that it will always sound good no matter what happens.
I was making music for the game because I got some experience in producing music, so it was easy for me to switch from, for example, producing normal music to producing game music. But there is a lot of tools that are very, very helpful. For example, there is a software called F mode when you are really like a tracker or something like that, and you can change everything, pitch, events, even randomize the clips we are playing. That's really, really good software. But this is from producing side of view. But I got another problem because I was making the steampunk games, and it was this genre steampunk. When I just checked what the steampunk music is, it was really, really shitty folk and shanty or something like that music. I didn't expect something like that. So I need to invent, how I see what the steampunk music should be. And it was, something like I just create the world and have to go to this world that wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, exactly this music. But for example, I was using some Mellotron sound and different kinds, the degradation of music, because I thought that, would be the best way to make the steampunk music. I think it fits to the game, but when I released the album on Spotify with the music from Steamburg, that was when I'm releasing now this, without the game, it's strange. It's really strange because it's the degraded, it's some vinyls noise and stuff like that.
So video games made the world of music of its own, more or less, dominated. Perhaps you will tell me that not by chiptune music, but are there any stylistic tendencies in this area? I mean, music that is like a hype of the last season or a few last seasons. Tell me if the video game music is evolving this way. I mean,
I know, but there's for me funny is that chiptune, for example, is for me like a pixel art. When you see the game with the pixels, that of course what the music will be with the game. Of course, there was a chiptune music. Yeah, that's obvious. But it's hard to to go outside boundaries and make something which is different, but I don't know what the trends are, really.
But not always. Pixel art is not always connected. You mentioned Hotline Miami.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
And it's not it's a pixel art.
Yeah, but it's definitely not chiptune.
That's why it's okay.
Yeah, but mostly, I agree with Mario. Mostly, when you see pixel art game, I'm 85% of the time this will be chiptune music. Yeah. So I think it depends on the genre of the game. For instance, games like AAA games like Witcher or Skyrim or Assassin's Creed or whatever, like open world RPGs. Like usually you have like a full orchestral setup there, like a really $1 million budget music. It's like a movie budget and movie kind of music. Yeah. So it depends on the genre of the game. Yeah, but you were saying previously about this making music and that it's different from making like standalone music. Just one point. Yeah, again, Hotline Miami. Yeah? It's like a full legit album. Yeah, you can't say it's like these are music layers just ripped out from the game and they just don't make sense. Yeah, it makes perfect sense as an album. So it also depends, like making music soundtrack and a full tracks, it varies. It's different than making layered music for the game. Yeah, with the sound effects and stuff. Sorry, just a digression. Yeah.
Well, it was the chiptune music was always a stylistic influence that I had and I loved. But what I was quite surprised to discover when I started working with developers is that everyone hates like 8-bit style now. When I was talking to Bartek from Leśniewski, we were just starting out, and he was pitching me the idea of their game, and I was like, oh, okay, so it's like a fun indie arcade game. Is it like 8-bit style graphics? And he said, oh no, we don't do that. We use vector graphics now. So Yeah. So I guess chiptune is also out of fashion, kind of. But at the same time, the chiptune is kind of a, well, maybe not catch-all term, but it can mean different things. So the chiptune from, for example, 8-bit era is quite different, to the chiptune of the 16-bit consoles, which introduced wavetable synthesis or FM synthesis, and it was actually amazing because it opened like a whole other world of sound, and it was it's amazing actually to witness those changes from like one era to another. Now it's not so, it's there is no such effect because the sounds are just recorded and not generated by sound chips. But those simple waves, like digital oscillators waves, or later FM kind of sounds, they sound so beautiful, so pristine, and it's still, I guess the Leśniewski soundtrack wasn't chiptune, but the chiptune was still like there in a kind of, yeah, in DNA, and it's it's the same, I guess, in many genres of electronic music. Maybe not so much today, but a couple of years ago, when the post dubstep kind of scene was booming, it was everywhere. The Hyperdub label, had released even the chiptune versions of their tracks. Like, for example, there's a Japanese artist called Quarta 330 that was doing that kind of stuff, and there were like 8-bit remixes of Code 9 releases. So yeah, and I guess even recently they put up a compilation called "Digging in the Crates," which is a kind of funny wordplay. That showcased like the early Japanese gaming music. So it's all over the place in club music.
With the chiptune is always the same. Like we are talking about Japanese artists, but there was a Japanese artist, Cornelius, and it was fun because on the album, this orange album, I don't remember the name, Phantasma. It was the chiptune song. It was, but it was obvious because he was a Japanese, so it was on the place. But sometimes I think the chiptunes covers the lack of composition. That's the problem. But when I like to listen, for example, if we are talking about chiptunes, the best for me was the chiptune version of, for example, Weezer or Dinosaur Jr. or Built to Spill, the guitar bands that are played with the chiptunes stuff. It was really cool because still there are composition behind it.
Yeah, but in the early days, I think that actually chiptune did not like mask the lack of the composition. It actually
only choice.
it was the only choice, but it also helped to to view the composition in its like bare form, because it was just just melodies, and it was it, and this music just killed you with the melody, and also the arpeggios, because they had no polyphony, right? So,
listen, our time is almost up. So one more short and quiz-like question. Let's imagine. Let's approach this Polish music market and the indie video game scene. Is there any more or less popular Polish artist whom you would see, whom you would imagine as a star of video game music? Let's imagine for a while. I don't know, even from this festival. Problem?
Yeah, in G2A. I don't know. I just think I think that everyone can put their music to the game. It depends from game, not from music. I think that if music is good, everyone can use it and then make good work using the music in the games. I think that's no worries. It's no problem.
Yeah, I think GTA is a good example, and because we were talking about making music, producing music, especially for games, but there are also games, a lot of games, like big games, which just use music. Yeah, there was a game called Sound Shapes, I guess, with Beck's music. It was all filled with music by Beck. There is Life is Strange, which has like Kings of Convenience and Sufjan Stevens and all great artists like. GTA also, like GTA Radio. It has like many artists, like from really niche rappers or indie bands to like really high profile artists. So I guess everybody from our festival could find her place in the music. It just depends on the in a game. Just depends on the game. Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of Soria Moria, so if they want, they could produce a killer game soundtrack. I think
somebody should only invent the music, the gaming word for them.
Yeah, of course.
It
would be a placeholder.
It should be quite imaginative. So thank you very much. My guests were Mariusz Szypura, Mariusz Leśniewski, Marcin Sonnenberg, Bartek Chaciński. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you. There are questions. We have. We've talked and talked. So
there is life outside.
Let's go with this question.
Hi. So my question is, what is the most common business model between musicians and developers? Is it licensing or is it to transfer rights? I guess this is mostly a question to Marcin.
Well, I cannot. I don't have a huge experience, so and it's an experience in working with indie game developers. So of course it may vary, but in my case, it's a percentage of the sales of the game, together with like a payment, upfront payment, right? And legally speaking, I think it was. I initially opted for the licensing model, but eventually I settled on just transferring the rights, and just putting in the contract some provisions that would, kind of safeguard me from using the music in ways which I wouldn't like to be used.
Okay, any other voices? No. Any other questions? So sorry for not mentioning this one. And thank you very much for coming once again. We are not moving far away, so if you have any questions for any of us, please catch us within the festival frame. Thank you very much. Bye bye.